home or away.
On Afternoons with Helen Farmer.
I recently had the chance to sit down with Mr. James Peacock, Head of Design and Technology at Heartland International, and Team Zenith, 3 Year 9 students who won the UAE's F1 in Schools competition. They're now going to be travelling virtually to Australia in March for the world title. Sat down with them on the Zoom yesterday and, of course, started with the obvious question, what exactly is F1 in Schools?
We run this as a part of the Design and Technology enrichment programme that we have on offer. And this is actually our first year that we've ran this, so we're particularly pleased with the results.
1 for 1. Congratulations. 100%
the idea behind this is that the students run their own F1 team, Formula One team. So they're not just focusing on the design aspects, which is something that I try and bring to the table, but it's also a lot of business, marketing. They had to gain sponsors, so they actually have to raise money for gaining real sponsors. They have to develop a car that is raced using CO2. They have to do a lot of marketing. They're judged on a portfolio, a verbal presentation. They have to have a pit stand. There are so many different elements of this competition, which actually makes it a huge amount of work, but actually really rewarding, and it really brings in a lot of elements from different subjects and applies it to a real life scenario.
And I think that's so valuable. There's Year 9 students who, as you say, are working all the way through from designing a car, and we should say it's not a full-scale F1 motor,
it's about 200 millimeters in length, but they go very fast. It's quite impressive watching them being fired off down the track. They are incredibly fast.
So Year 9 initial team of 4, and we've got the team of 3 with us today, which is wonderful, each of whom has a different role. Speak up, before we meet the team, would you be able to explain how the competition actually is judged, how it all comes together, and prizes? Because we all need a bit of incentive.
Yeah, so we initially started running this as an after-school club, and then we actually switched to then carrying on with distance learning. So, it's up to schools to run this independently, and then they get the opportunity at a point during the year to then reach the national finals. Depending on how many schools are taking part, you might have a regional finals first, or some schools might have an inter-school competition first. And so you build up from your regional to your nationals, and then some people from the nationals go to the world finals, which was actually held in Abu Dhabi last year. So we actually got to see last year's finalists from across the world, which is a really good insight. Now, what would normally happen is you would go to another country and take part in the world finals, but this year, unfortunately, it's switched to virtual, which is a shame, but there are benefits to that. We don't have to pay for the flights and find that sort of money.
Jet lag.
Yeah, absolutely. But in terms of incentive for the students, it is quite highly regarded across STEM industries. Traditionally, the Williams F1 team have recruited from the World Finals onto their graduate program. So students that do particularly well.
Very cool.
Yeah. So it's always tied in with the F1 weekend in whatever location the finals is taking part. So they get to meet all the teams and they can network and get onto graduate programs that way.
I love the sound of this. So you mentioned that these little cars go at quite big speeds. Who ultimately decides who the winner is, and what are some of the components that they're looking at? Because as you say, it's not just about the car, it's about bringing it together with sponsors, marketing, and all sorts of different aspects of actually running this.
Yeah, so they have quite a detailed set of regulations and assessment criteria that they have to follow. There's actually 2 very thick books of regulations that they have to follow, and the criteria, and that goes from the engineering aspect to the reliability of the car. It isn't necessarily all about the car and the speed of the car and the design of the car and how innovative the car is in its design. It also factors in their entire design process. You just come up with one car doesn't look as good as coming up with 10, and you've refined it over time. You've gone through an iterative process. And so it's evidencing the whole journey. Graphic design comes into it quite a lot as well. And some of our students have done particularly well in that area, laying out a 10-page portfolio about their journey from the branding. They've also got a uniform. They're not wearing it today, but they do have a fantastic uniform with all their sponsors over it and their branding. They've got a website. They really, really good presence on social media. They'll be able to tell you all the handles and things for their social media when they get to
the youth.
Yes.
It sounds hugely involved, and as you say, in addition to what is a really busy time in year 9 as well. Catherine, I know you're kind of team leader. Can you tell us a little bit about why you wanted to get involved in the F1 in Schools programme in the first place?
I just feel that F1 in Schools competition is extremely insightful and a great opportunity for anyone who wants to do it. And I've seen that that's really what it is over my journey, that I've learned so much and various things that I couldn't have learned if it weren't for this competition.
And I know obviously schools do a lot in terms of the academic side, but this feels like a real life application. Some of the skills you're needing to draw on and even learn during the process could be things that you may well up doing in a career in the future. Do you feel like this experience has perhaps informed what you might study at university or even do as a job?
Yeah, I definitely feel that this influences that, and I've realized that I really enjoy design more than I originally thought, and it tells me really what field I want to go to later in life.
So come on, what are you thinking about doing?
So I'm thinking of being a civil engineer. And currently in the team, I'm the design engineer, so there's similar aspects, which is great.
Good for the old resume as well. And now Elizabeth, you were involved in the graphic design side, and as Mr. Peacock says, brilliant in terms of the logo, website presence, and you've done a fantastic job there, because it's not just a case of coming up with something that looks attractive. It's about communicating your brand identity, making sure sponsors are on board and they understand what that presence is going to be like for them. What have been some of your biggest challenges during the competition, and what do you think you've learned from them?
Challenges were definitely COVID-19 and how we had to go to distance learning and could not communicate as often as we used to before. And so we had to look to other programs like Teams and Zoom to communicate with each other.
And honestly, who hasn't spent time on Zoom and Teams in the past year? This is a real world skill and Continuing now our conversation with James Peacock. He's the head of design and technology at Heartland International, and Team Zenith. They are 3 year 9 students who recently won, on the first time entering, by the way, the UAE's F1 in Schools competition. It's a STEM-based programme bringing together designing a car, but also marketing, business, sponsorship and more. They're now going to be travelling, unfortunately virtually, although good for the jet lag, to Australia in March for the world title. Speaking with the students, I had to ask, what have they actually learnt in the process?
As marketing manager and team manager, I have to handle finances, look out for sponsors, contact them. So our marketing strategy right now is to promote our brand, F1 Schools competition, and our sponsors. And we also want to inspire more youth into STEM, as it's a great opportunity.
So, all right, here's your platform. Tell us the team name, and if you want to give some sponsors a little shout out, I'm sure we could get back to them and charge them a bit more now they've got some radio coverage.
Okay, so we are Zenith, and we are world finalists. We are looking for sponsors to fund our project, and our email is teamzenithuae@gmail.com.
Good work. So what's next then, Mr. Peacock? As you said, you are the UAE champions, and it's Australia where the final is going to be held this year. And as you said, unfortunately, not in real life, but it does save on some costs and some logistical headaches, I'm sure. What happens next? You've got this fantastic creation. You've got this business plan of sorts as well. How do you feel like you're going to be able to compete on an international level?
Well, so it is quite a challenge. So because it's our first year, they actually were in the rookie category. So they have different regulations to what all of their competitors going into the World Finals have. So they've now got to go from being a rookie team to a professional team in a space of 2 months, whereas everything we've done previously has been done over a year and a half. So it's going to be very, very intense. We've got until beginning of March to get everything ready. So we're looking at getting new sponsors. They have to raise about 17,000 dirhams to be able to even take part in this. And they've got to achieve that in the next number of weeks. So that's the biggest thing, is they are now just trying to get sponsors and try to ensure those sponsors get a great return on investment as well, especially on an international platform this time. But they've got to do a new car. So we've got to create an entirely new car. But
Why?
They've also got
what was wrong with the old one?
The other one was great, but they actually get more freedom now, and they've learned things from the previous car. And to be competitive on a world stage, the car's got to be lighter, it's got to be more aerodynamic, it's got to be built to a higher quality. They've actually also got to design the wheels and support system, which they didn't have to do in the rookie category. They had that provided. So that's a whole new skill set for all of us in the school right now to figure all of that out. But they've got to then produce a new portfolio. They've got to produce a virtual pit stand, sort of a virtual 3D tour around the pit stand. So they have got a lot of work to do, but there's no better students to do that.
I was just about to say, I can see by the look in their eyes, they're all up for the challenge. Kathy, can I ask you, what happens in the competition? How is it judged in terms of an actual course and that car kind of showing off what it can do?
So once we give in our car and they race it, because of COVID and that it's going to be a virtual finals, we have to pre-record our race time.
So do you film it then and you upload the footage to the kind of the judges and adjudicators? What's the process?
Oh no, sorry. So basically, we send our car in and we pre-record the reaction time of one of our members, and we send that into them as well. And when they race it, our car down the 20-meter track, we have used our reaction time. So that's how it works. We also, in the regulations, there's like scorecards that we follow while working on the project, and that's how we're judged on each aspect of the competition.
And Elizaveta, how many teams are going to be there in that final?
There are 55 countries, and per each country there can be up to 3 or 4 teams, so there's going to be a lot of people.
And is there a apart from glory and the chance to work in F1, as Mr. Peacock says, some graduates being spied by some of the teams, is there a prize?
There's not really like a financial like money prize, but you can get into like top universities and study like F1.
I think you guys would do that anyway. Gautam, can I ask you to give us the social media tag so people can follow your progress and see how it all unfolds over the coming weeks?
Okay, so our Instagram account is at zenith.uae. Okay. Our Facebook account is the same, it's at zenith.uae. And our Twitter is at zenith_UAE. And yes, hope you follow us.